Hey everyone, welcome to the YMS podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Colin Mansfield, a company VP at Yard Management Solutions. I'm joined, as always, by Seve Carnera. You want to introduce yourself, Seve?
Hey everybody, good seeing you. Yeah, it's great to be back on here, Colin. Thanks for having us again.
Heck yeah, man. Another episode here. This week we're talking about trucking yards or trucking terminals, as they're sometimes referred to. And we have our very first guest, which I'm very excited about. We're joined today by Mindy Groves, who's an employee at Yard Management Solutions. Mindy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Mindy Groves. Like Colin said, I've been with Yard Management now for a little over a year. But prior to coming to Yard Management, I have been in transportation, logistics, 3PL services for about 25 years or better. So lots of experience with trucking companies. So I was glad to join on today and put my 2 cents in and show you guys what Yard Management's all about for a trucking company. So thanks, Colin.
Absolutely. Mindy comes with such a big background that, we like to have people on the show who know what they're talking about and are experts in their field. And we really felt like Mindy's a great person to pick her brain a little bit about this specific challenge and this specific area of yard management. On this podcast, every couple weeks, we bring a new topic specifically related to yard management and the logistics and supply chain industry. I've said this before, a lot of times the yard is treated as the black hole of the supply chain. A lot of people look at their warehouse first, they might look at over the road second, and then the yard kind of a lot of times gets left behind. And what we've sort of been sharing over this, last 11, 12 episodes or so, is why the yard is worth paying attention to. And there's lots of different operation types that can benefit from this. We've talked in the past about reefer operations, and specifically about operations where they've got, docks, their KPIs are related to turn times and dwell times. So if your operation is a warehouse or a plant or a distribution center of some kind, and you're more interested in that, we've got lots of episodes talking about that. But today, we want to laser focus in on the terminal yard for trucking companies. And I wanted to start by asking Mindy, if you could maybe share some of the challenges you saw over your 2+ decades working in the industry, and then also related to some of the companies you've talked to more recently since working at YMS. In the trucking industry, why is yard management something that's critical? What are some of the challenges they're facing?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, two of the largest challenges that I think every single trucking company probably faces daily. The first being visibility, just being able to see what's on the yard at any given time. Trucks are coming in and out so frequently on a terminal. It's quite different. And they don't have appointments that, they work for that company. So they're coming in and out. No one truly knows when they're arriving, when they need to depart. So visibility is a huge factor for a trucking terminal. I would also say that number two, because most, excuse me, most carriers have their drivers stopping in at a terminal that they're close to get some kind of maintenance done on their equipment. So whether it be tractor trailer inspections, different things that need to be done, they're typically stopping by to visit the shop. So any kind of visibility that we can give inside operations for what's happening outside on the yard is critical. So I would think that those were the two main functions for a trucking terminal that they really need to have that full visibility for.
Yeah, it's an interesting, sort of area for us, because typically when we come to an operation, it's a distribution center or a warehouse. They've got dock doors and they've got a gate, and it could be their assets, it could be carrier assets, or some combination. Could be live unloads, could be drop loads, and so a lot of those challenges all of a sudden don't apply to the same level that they would in a trucking terminal. Instead, there's this whole other group of challenges, and you mentioned inspections as one of them. Seve and I were on site at a company last Christmas, last December, doing a go live, and not a trucking yard, but one of their big issues sort of resonated with me after talking through this with you, Mindy, which was that they needed to track DOT and preventative maintenance inspections in their yard. They had a whole lot of owned assets, and they needed to track that. Seve, I wanted to ask you a little bit, with your experience over a decade working specifically in yard management, Is this something that you see across the industry as like, yeah, inspections are a big deal?
Yeah, for sure. I've worked with organizations that own their own trailers or have fleet trailers, and that inspection process does become something that comes to the forefront all the time. And it's an easy understanding too, because you don't want those trailers or assets to leave the facility if they're up for some form of preventive maintenance. And I've worked with other solutions as well too, where we've actually done integration with the actual solutions that they have in house to track that information, to also track what may have been done to that unit, whether it be something like adding oil to the tractor and maybe reconfiguring the suspension on the trailer. So that type of information is typically stored in a separate type of solution, but the benefit of it, we can take that information, update it, make sure that we know that those traders have gone through a PM process, for example, and then they're ready to leave the site. I can share with you that I've worked with one customer, for example, that if that tractor or trailer showed up at the gate ready to depart, and there was an inspection process that had not been performed, they would not allow that unit to leave the yard. So it does become very super critical to make sure that you can manage that and keep track of those types of operations as well too.
Well, I'll share how we've done this. Our for our customers where this is of critical importance, we have this tool as a part of our system called Eagle View, and it's sort of the bread and butter of YMS, which is the map where users can go and they can see where their assets are, specifically in their yard. Where are they at? And this is great from the perspective of somebody walking out trying to find a tractor or a trailer, for example, a driver coming into the yard, rather than saying, I don't know, you're going to have to just walk out there and find it. You can give them at least, hey, it's in this corner of the yard. Go take a look. Or better yet, it's in this specific spot, right? But on the flip side, the nice thing about Eagle View is that it allows our customers to have visibility, not just of locations, but also of statuses. And this is where things like preventative maintenance, DOT, or other important inspections become very, very critical to track, but also really easy to track on Eagle. We can do things like, for example, change the color of an asset, make it start flashing a certain color if its preventative maintenance is expired. So before you go through the planning process of what trailer is going to be assigned to what or who's going to drive what, you have a easy to use map that shows you what needs to go get inspected. And then to take that to the next level, we can do things like a send to maintenance button. Or, for example, you could do it right there in what we call our yard check module on a tablet and do an inspection. So there's lots of ways that we can skin this to make it really, really nice for not just users that are more familiar with a warehousing type operation, but for trucking terminals as well. Mindy, what are some of the downsides that you've seen, yards that lose visibility of their assets? What are some of the costs associated with not having good visibility in a terminal yard?
Absolutely, yeah. Excuse me. One of the biggest challenges that a trucking terminal would face is lack of customer service. So when a driver typically comes onto a yard, he's typically going to drop his trailer, pick up another trailer. And so if they don't have full visibility of when a load was dropped on the yard, they don't know then when that load needs to deliver and actually get to its final destination. So to not have that visibility is going to cause a carrier to fail a customer. So your all of your statuses will start coming down. You fail a customer too many times, and you're going to stop getting freight from them. It's just very important to be able to track what is loaded on your yard, what's empty on your yard. When it has to final out, when is that final delivery appointment to make sure it gets back on the road on time. So honestly, from a carrier standpoint, customer service is key. And so they have to know what is loaded on every trailer and when it needs to be a final.
Let's use this as a bit of a segue here to talk through integrations a little bit. Mindy and I have done demos for a few different terminal yards, and one of the big questions I get asked is, well, we have GPS units on all of our trailers. Can we just use that to track them in your solution, or do we need a map like Eagle View to track these things if we have these GPS units on there? And I think Seve would echo me on this. That for us, it's all about what are your pain points? What are the things that you're not getting now that we can help resolve? And for a lot of these customers, it comes down to either the GPS units don't give them the fidelity that they need, and they need greater visibility on specifically what spot that trailer is in or that tractor is in. Or it comes down to things like statuses. GPS can tell you a lot about a unit, but it can't tell you if it's loaded or empty, right? And so these are the types of things that a dedicated yard management system is like made for. This is all Seve and Mindy and I think about every day is how can we make the best yard management system possible, right? So nothing against, there's some great GPS. In fact, I think on the last episode of the show, we talked about some great GPS companies that are worth pursuing and working with, but not one solution is going to fit or resolve every problem. And so talking with these companies, it's where are you seeing the biggest pain points at your facility that are making you interested in a yard management system? That could be integrating with those GPS units so that we can show once they enter or leave the terminal that they've arrived or that they've departed. It could be more specifically integrating so that they can see the area of the yard where that's located. It could be integrating with a maintenance system or similar, where the statuses of those trailers can be passed to YMS, or vice versa. We can relay, hey, this trailer was marked damaged on the yard, to that maintenance system to start a work order. So there's lots of sort of opportunities here. We're big believers that at the end of the day, our system is about solving problems. It's in our company name, Yard Management Solutions, right? We want to come up with the best thing that's going to help your operation, and that can change depending on what kind of operation you have. I'll share a quick story. We had a customer who was leasing a bunch of trailers, right? And they did not know how many they actually needed. They knew that they were leasing too many for their operational need because they weren't using all of them, but they didn't know how many they could get rid of. So they asked us to add a feature into YMS that would make, after a lease trailer comes onto the lot, if it's not used for a certain amount of time, to make it turn a different color or bounce up and down on the screen, for example. And so we did it. And after 30 days, they were able to save 180 grand a year, right? These are the really easy wins that a lot of operations don't think about when they're looking at a yard management system, but nevertheless are sort of, I've talked about the iceberg effect on previous episodes, the 80% below the water that we're going to add additional value to. Seve, I want to turn attention to you for a sec here. I know we've talked about safety a lot in the past. As safety applies to terminal yards specifically, what are some things that come to your mind that a dedicated yard management system is going to help assist with to keep these operations more safe and more secure?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question, Colin. But obviously, you want to make sure that drivers are following instructions from a standpoint of where they should be placed in the yard. With those types of terminals, you never know who's out there in the yard. Drivers are constantly moving in and out, going to the actual unit themselves that they own, or they may be looking for a unit that they're trying to hook to and leave the facility as well too. So trying to keep that down to a minimum is great. And there's ways we can communicate with drivers in that fashion as well too, so we can minimize that activity out in the yard. You don't want to have too much activity in the yard from a standpoint of having people just going to and for office space, for example, or having to leave the site or leave the truck to go to the bathroom. You try and keep all of that to a minimum. So that, again, to your point, you have a safe environment, and again, you're not going to run into issues as you move forward. That one's probably one of the most difficult challenges that these types of yards have. Is literally keeping them safe for all people that are working in that yard, or those individuals that are bringing in and out product as well too.
We had this customer who came to us with this interesting challenge where every morning their drivers would show up and pick up their vehicles and go off and make deliveries for the day. And they would storm the office, right? And you'd have 50 plus drivers rushing the office out all at the same time to get their paperwork, get their keys so they could head off. And so this company came to us and they said, is there a way that we can make this easier? Because we've got all these drivers wandering around the lot. It becomes a very unsafe environment, right? Having all these people with as we all know, the yard doesn't just stop for a few minutes. It keeps, there's always things coming in and out. And so what we did is we integrated intelligent systems like texting the driver, for example. So for this customer, the solution that really worked well for them is the night before they would stage all of the paperwork and any of the information needed for that driver with the vehicle. And then when those drivers arrived for the day, YMS was on a system where we would text that driver based on their assignment to the vehicle, to their mobile number, where their vehicle was, so that they could just go directly to their vehicle when they arrived, grab their stuff, and leave. And the office all of a sudden became this area of Zen peace, where once it was just total chaos, right? These are the types of solutions that, without a dedicated system, you go, there's no way we can crack it. I mean, it's inevitable. But all of a sudden opens up these sorts of doors that you didn't even think possible.
Yeah, no more Easter egg hunts in the
No
yard.
more Easter egg hunts, man. We love the Easter bunny, but let's keep that to the spring, please. That would be great. Um,
You
Mindy,
know,
let's
I
talk.
just talked to a care. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just talked to a carrier not too long ago on the phone that was doing exactly that, Seve. They have a huge yard down in southern Texas, and they were talking about the heat and the stuff in the summer that it just makes it so challenging. But they were spending over an hour in some cases looking for one trailer on their yard. And so to have the visibility for something like that, these guys were getting in a golf cart, just driving up and down lanes of trailers, trying to find the load that needed to be picked up next. So really, yeah, the visibility and even safety comes into play there. You've got a golf cart running around trying to find trailers. Not everybody can even see him. There's just so many different things that you can relate to that. That visibility just immediately eliminates all kinds of aspects that you don't even consider. So yeah, I agree with you, Seve. That was a great point.
uh, let's talk about the gate. Let's turn our attention to the gate for a minute. We've talked about this in the past in relation to specifically yards where they don't own their own assets, right? The carriers are coming in. Maybe there's an appointment, maybe there's not, and they arrive at the gate, and that can form sort of a situation where you've got bottlenecks happening, right? And I've been at enough gates to know how crazy it can get when you've got employees that are sitting there just sweating while they're typing at the computer and they're writing stuff down and they're highlighting and they're trying to get drivers through, and there's just this line going out to the road of vehicles, and my heart goes out to anybody who's worked in that situation. um, what are some ways, Seve, that you've seen for yard management at the gate? How can we help these kinds of operations, especially when they own their own assets, to make it really easy to get these guys and gals, these drivers, in and out of the facility quickly?
Yeah, you mentioned GPS tags earlier, Colin, and that does definitely help. It's very easy to create a geofence around the gate, or even larger. Spread it out. Maybe a mile away from the site, and when they break that geofence, you know that they're on their way. So that sort of gives you an idea of what may be coming in and out of the facility. But there's other things that can be done as well too. Whether if, for example, if they do have an appointment, a QR code could be included on paperwork that they're given as well too, where that QR code has all the information about that particular unit to ingest into the solution. So you don't have individuals wasting lots of time trying to get the trader number correct or the carrier correct and asking all these questions to the drivers. And as we know, sometimes there's language barriers as well too. So there's ways to combat that, to expedite that process. So again, you're not having a long line of trucks, waiting to get in. And in many cases too, unfortunately, the law gets involved as well too, where people come and complain and say, "Hey, your trailers are backing up the street. We can't have that happening here." So there's various ways to crack that nut. It just depends on the operations, what they have already in use, or ways of making those operations streamlined by introducing new functionality or new technology as well too.
And we can look at this as different, phases in an operation as well. I was on site with a yard down in San Diego area, a leased trailer yard, where, or rather, a leased spots where they were actually allowing different carriers to come in, use their spots, and pay to use those. And for this operation, something like a camera system makes a lot of sense, right? Where it's the same kinds of trailers coming in and out, or containers coming in and out every day. There's not a lot that they need to do at the gate in terms of like validation or checking. It's there's nothing that's secure on the site. There's no theft possibility or that sort of thing. And so having a camera situation with maybe one guy in the office who's just making sure that things are running well can work excellent, right? Um, and I think a lot of attention has been paid towards those, AI camera systems, which can work very well. What I would say is that make sure to look at your operational needs before you just go chasing after the latest and greatest technology, because there could be some very inexpensive ways that you can overcome some of your immediate challenges, get value, and then go to implement the bigger implementation that costs more money and has the bigger payoff long term. That's great, but for a lot of our customers, when they come to us, they're so in pain that anything we can do to relieve that pressure now gives you the opportunity to plan. Now that you're starting to see the ROI and you're starting to meet some of your KPIs there, you're able to look at what's the next phase. So I would look at a few things if you're an operation that's struggling at the gate, right? Seve mentioned two of them right off the bat: GPS and QR codes. These are two phenomenal opportunities. This customer I mentioned towards the beginning that we implemented last year with their owned assets, we implemented QR codes for them so that those PM and DOT inspections are saved to the trailer, so that next time, and the truck, so that next time those arrive, right, the system knows the last time they were inspected. So these sorts of things are nice and easy to do when you have a solution like ours. I would also look at those camera systems that I mentioned earlier, and I would also look at automatic gate systems with like a kiosk. And
Yes.
some of these systems can be sort of, there's overlap, right? You could have cameras and a kiosk, for example, but a kiosk can be a great way to let drivers check themselves in and out of a facility with a very low touch from your staff and your employees. There's not one solution for every customer, right? It really depends on your yard, your operational flow, but there are options. And these options are all going to be better than four people sweating at the guard shack with a line of trailers out to the street. I can guarantee you that. Um, all right, lots of opportunity at the gate. Mindy, I want to ask. This is a specific sort of challenge that I've heard addressed for terminal yards that maybe other operations may face if they own their own assets, but those that work with carriers probably don't have to think about this at all. Which is which assets do you use and when? Right, you've got a variety of different trucks and trailers out in the yard, and depending on how old they are, how much they've been used, you may want to prioritize using certain kinds of loads. In your experience in the industry and then working with our solution, what are some ways we can help with that?
Well, we could help a little bit with, like I said, tracking the loads that are coming on and when those final appointments are. But some of it really relates to the drivers. So being able to track their trucks on the yard, knowing when those drivers' times are available, if they've, if they have time to actually pick up a load and deliver it. So some of those things would be very important to capture at a yard. Um, you mentioned the auto gates system too. For a trucking terminal, that would be wonderful in relation to what you just asked, because drivers often come in at all hours of the day. They'll sneak in at night, want to sneak back out in the morning. And that's when a yard can lose a load and not even know that it arrived and the driver left again. So being able to use those automatic gate systems for a terminal would be pertinent to capturing that information. No more sneaking on and off of a yard and not truly knowing what's there. But yeah, I think that that would be great.
No, great points. Great points. Um, okay, I want to talk about data a little bit. And Seve, you can answer this. This is really just in general for any of our customers. When we think about data, we think about it's like the least sexy thing in a YMS, right? Ooh, let's talk about the data. It's going to be great. But the reality is, I think I've said this maybe in one other episode, people come to us for the gee whiz stuff. They come to us for the visibility on Eagle View, for being able to see all of their operations, which are great and deliver enormous amounts of value. But our customers stay with us because of the long-term impacts of being able to track their data. You want to talk about that a
Yeah.
little bit more in depth?
Yeah, sure, Colin. So it makes a lot of sense. The more data you can consume about a particular piece of equipment, et cetera, is even better. We don't want to get too granular with getting like a license plate number for that piece of equipment. But at the end of the day, when you understand when the DOT inspection last occurred, you understand what kind of trailer that is or vehicle that is, it helps tremendously from that standpoint. So yeah, making sure that you can do those things through a YMS. There's again, you can't put a price tag on that stuff because again, you're making sure that you understand what data you need at some point, And especially if the data is, for example, again, for a DOT inspection, and it can come short of allowing a trader allowing to leave the yard, for example, is very, very helpful. Um, data, again, when you see it over time, you can also, obviously one of the things that I like to mention as well too is instead of making decisions based on what you're observing out in the yard, now you can make decisions based on actual fact and data that you then have in the solution. So, whether it be a simple report to download and see, okay, what trailers do I need to make sure go through this inspection process? Or could it be something like, hey, do I have trailers out in the yard that are currently loaded that may have reefer units that need to also be managed as well too? So to your point, data's not real sexy, but it's a tremendous help out in the yard. Again, because at that point, when you have that data, you can tell a lot of what's occurring in the yard. And again, it's based on actual factual circumstances that occur in the yard, actual activities, versus just what you're observing with your two eyes.
That's it,
You
man. I
know,
mean, the ability to go in and get your entire inventory in a single click versus having
Yeah,
to walk out and have a spreadsheet and everything else. That's like step one. And then step 5 or 6 is now you're making decisions based on trends that you're seeing before
yep,
those issues actually come up. Right. And that's where the data all of a sudden starts to not just be a nice to have, wow, this is great, but it starts to save you real money because you're
sure,
going, okay, if for example, we know that we might intrinsically know things like our yards are full at these times of the times of the day or these times of the month, or we have certain peak seasons or whatever. But actually being able to forecast things like inventory, being able to know and give your teams, hey, last year it was this week that was a really crunch week.
yep.
Um, Probably need to know that we're not getting much else done except for our common tasks. These sorts of things all of a sudden allow you to plan ahead, right? Mindy, you were going to say something and I cut you off. Sorry, go ahead.
it, no, that's okay. Seve brought up a good point that we haven't actually addressed yet. But data, absolutely. But data for a refrigeration company is crucial. Those terminals that have reefer units on their yard and what we can assist with product protection through our solution is amazing to me. It's invaluable information that we capture for them, and it's just absolutely crucial. To be able to run reports on that is fabulous, but to be able to see the data actually happening through our product protection is, I think, a life changer for any refrigeration company.
Well, and,
Mhm.
and here's how it works. It's not rocket science. It's really easy. But what it does is it gives you forewarning as an actual operator, as a manager at the facility, which is reefer units that are on the lot. Not only can we track the temperature, the set temperature, and the most recent reported temperature, we could integrate with that actual sensor for the reefer unit to get that data, or that can be entered in at arrival or at some other point in the process of managing the yard. That information is critical, right? To be able to know, is something out where we think it should be, and if it's not, if it's outside of a given temperature range, for example, the reported temperature is, I don't know, let's say +5, beyond what it should be for the set temp, then we can turn that asset a different color. We can send a text message or an email or an alert to relevant users and management to notify them that you have a problem. And the other side of that is fuel, right? And being able to track the fuel, both for a reefer unit, but also the fuel of the vehicle, if that's important to you as well. And to have those fuel for reefer units, have that fuel actually decrease over time while it's in the yard and provide you with an alert when it needs to get refueled. And that we can do without a single sensor involved. We can give you a backstop time to let you know, hey, you're going to want to refill that reefer unit because it's getting towards the end of its fuel tank here, and we want to avoid any potential spoilage that could occur. We've had customers that have saved entire loads using this platform, where in the past they have experienced spoilage and all of the issues that come with that, and all the paperwork and all the explaining that comes with losing a load, not to mention the money. But something like our solution gives you the peace of mind so that you don't have to worry about what's going on. You know that the system's keeping track of it for you in real time. So yeah, product protection is huge, whether you run a terminal operation, a trucking yard, or if you run sort of a more standard warehousing facility. Either of those, great use cases for our reefer tracking system, product protection specifically. All right. let's talk just here at the end of the episode. We're coming in on a landing here. We hit the 30-minute mark, so we're doing pretty well. I want to talk a little bit about the future in terms of what, these operations that are running on pen and paper. A lot of the times, they're not even worried about what's coming down the road in 5 or 10 years. They're just trying to figure out how to solve their operational issues now. But I'm interested, Seve, looking at where the industry is now. We always like to kind of forecast, and we'll see if we do this podcast long enough, we'll get to see how many of your hot takes bear out, which I can't wait to see. But but from your perspective, looking at the future of both technology and of kind of where the industry is going, for those listeners on the show who are running terminal operations, what might you expect to see coming down the pipeline in the future?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Colin. And again, I think you're going to start seeing more use of GPS tags with regards to the yards, especially for those organizations that have fleet traders. I mean, it's very easy to grab that data from those GPS tags when you have integration. And again, to your point, it helps you identify where that piece of equipment is in the yard, and again, minimizes the Easter egg hunt. The other thing as well too, that's a very low tech, very efficient solution as well too, are QR codes. We mentioned this earlier as well. Uh, we do have customers, like you mentioned, that put QR codes on their trailers to expedite the arrival and departure process. It would be a very good idea that to have trucking companies do the same thing. Put a QR code on the side of their unit that also includes the SCAC code, the type of trailer, the length of it. Even if you want to include the DOT on there as well, there's a lot of information you can store on a QR code that will also expedite arrivals and departures as well. So I gave you one high tech example, one low tech example, but at the end of the day, I do see a future where those two types of activities or those two types of solutions will help as we move forward to expedite things like arrivals and departures and identifying locations of traders in the yard.
Absolutely. And look, we've said this on the podcast in the past, and I'll reiterate this, which is, at the end of the day, you may or may not find one solution that's going to give you everything that you're looking for, right? GPS, for example, that's going to give you visibility, but it might not give you information about that trailer itself or what's loaded on it or products, etc. Reefer sensors, great for telling the temperature and but a lot of those don't even give you the fuel level, so you may need to rely on another system for that. The key is to pick systems and to pick technology that can work together, right? And to get that data all in one place so that you can do things like have dashboards of activities, be able to forecast on what's coming down, potential issues across your operation, issues that you've had in the past that now you can spot in the future, right? And by selecting both tools and systems that can integrate really easily together, you're future proofing yourself, right? So that you don't get into a situation where you're over reliant on any one system, but instead you've got a very flexible solution that can move to accommodate whatever comes out in the future. So with that, I think that's going to do it, unless there's anything else. You guys have anything else you want to share here at the end, or are we good to wrap up?
I would like to just share one more experience that I had when I came to yard management, and that was kind of an aha moment for me, if you will. I didn't realize truly how much money was being left on the table without a yard management solutions. I've worked with many yards, lack of communication between departments, all the issues. They're all present everywhere you go, every carrier, every company. It's all the same. But I didn't realize truly how much money was being left on the table by not having a system that specifically manages from the gate check in to the gate checkout, regardless of what the activity on the yard is, whether it's going to a shop or a driver's just checking in before he heads back out, or if it's to a dock door to get unloaded. I really would encourage people to look into a YMS for that specific reason. So we all have WMSs, we all have TMSs, but you're really leaving money on the table without having that piece that truly connects the two. So I just wanted to share my experience there because I think it's very valuable.
You're absolutely right. It's not tens of thousands of dollars left on the table. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars
No.
to millions of dollars being
Mhm.
left on the table. In every case that we've looked at, that's not specific to one kind of operation. Every operation has
It's not.
hundreds of thousands of dollars that you could be reaping either directly financial benefit from or more efficient labor allocation, for example, those sorts of things. So you're absolutely right, Mindy. And thank you for coming on the show. This is your inaugural episode, so it's great to have you on here. We hope to have you back. If you're interested in finding out more about yard management solutions, you can find us on LinkedIn. That's a great place to go. You can find us on our website, yardmanagementsolutions.com. Please add me, Mindy, or Seve on LinkedIn as well. We're happy to have a conversation with you. And to Mindy's point, if you really want to know, okay, what kind of ROI could we be looking at? How much money are we leaving on the table? We have a tool that we'd love to share with you. It's a free tool. All the formulas are open so you can see exactly where we're calculating this stuff from. And it's a calculator that shares with you, based on your activities in the yard, how much you could expect to save by implementing our solution. So look forward to talking with you. But for now, I hope everybody has a great week, great rest of the summer here as we move into fall. And look forward to coming back at you here in another couple weeks with another episode. Bye for now.